There was one particular issue which struck a chord with a lot of us media when it came out, and definitely seems to have struck a chord with a lot of our listeners as well. And those are comments made by Leo Varadkar at the weekend, where he discussed this idea that a lot of people considering emigrating might actually not end up emigrating at all. And as he said in his own words, the grass can look greener. Now, this was on...
Who did you make those comments to, Gavin?
He made those comments on... I always try to make a point of not having cross-pollination where, like, I don't try to use...
He said it on Gavin's radio.
To promote my show.
He said it
to me. I host a program on News Talk on Sunday mornings, and he said it to me. He was in with me on the weekend. And he told me on News Talk that the grass isn't always greener, because I put to him that there was a new Red C poll which showed that 2/3 of people aged between 18 and 25 and about a third of people aged between 25 and 35 were considering leaving the country. And he said that it might be the case that if you go to a very rural area or a third or fourth tier city, that life might be more affordable. His words, not mine. But that can be true in Ireland too, he said. Sometimes the grass looks greener. It's not the case that more Irish people are leaving Ireland than coming home. Actually, more Irish citizens are coming home. So the grass can look greener, and considering emigration is not the same as actually doing it. Now, I've checked the stats, and it is true that there is net inward flow of Irish people. So in the year up to April, about 29,000 Irish people came home from abroad, a little under 28,000 left. So there's a slight inflow of Irish citizens. But the idea that a lot of people wouldn't consider leaving, or this idea that the grass may not be greener, is something that has exercised a lot of our listeners.
Yes, but I want to ask you, because you were there when it happened, and obviously people will have seen this, and I think it would be hard to not have seen this over the last number of days since he said it. When you were listening to him and he was giving you that answer in the interview, what was your feeling? Did you realize that was quite a significant thing, or that would be something which is going to be a real touchstone of anger for people?
In truth, my gut reaction was, I wish I had seen this coming so that I could have had facts and figures to hand, because it's one of those things where you can't empirically prove or disprove it in the spur of the moment. So like if you're able to say, right, pause the clock, here's another Bernard's watch reference. If you pause the watch for a second while I go off and checked the Spanish and Italian and British and German versions of Daft to see what's the going rate in all those places. That in truth was my gut reaction. I did suspect that it might raise a few eyebrows. I don't think to the effect that it has done, because certainly a lot of our listeners have been very irked by that contention by the Taoiseach.
They sure have. Group chat listeners in all of the corners of the world answered the call. Gavin, they heard us looking for their stories of rental wonders abroad in comparison to the situations that they left back here. And they were very exercised by what Leo Varadkar had to say, and rightly so. I suppose if you look at the stats, it is worth saying off the top of of all of this is that if you compare rents in Dublin, to use the city that Leo Varadkar is mostly talking about, with other cities in Europe and not just specifically one city in North America, not good comparison, I would say. The grass certainly is greener in terms of what's available and what is rental protection in other countries, and that is what our listeners had to say. So a lot of people joined the group chat this week, and here's some of their own experiences of renting abroad.
Yeah, I'm living in Bonn in Western Germany. It's about half an hour away from Cologne, and I'm paying a fraction of what is being paid for the equivalent in Dublin, Galway, Cork. So it's very difficult for me to see how I'm ever going to be able to move back to Ireland, because I just genuinely don't think I'll ever be able to afford a room of this standard in Ireland, which is really kind of proves how incorrect Leo Varadkar's statement was.
I made the move from Dublin to Berlin in 2020, and to be honest, I haven't really looked back. And like, you'd meet Irish people here, or even German friends, and you kind of have a bit of a laugh looking at like what's going up on Irish websites now. The showers and living rooms, the €1,000 sheds that people are living in, the shed sits.
I currently live by myself in a one-bedroom apartment in downtown Toronto, and I pay approximately, after conversion, about €1,400 a month in rent, and then on top of that my bills are about €100, so that would include my heat, my electricity, phone and my internet. And then within the rent itself, I have access to all the amenities in my building, which are a gym, a pool, there are guest suites we can rent, there is a party room we can rent out. When I looked at what's available in Dublin, it would be about €2,500 to live anything comparably. I know for a fact that if I was to move home tomorrow, I would definitely have to share it with someone, or I would have to move back in with my parents. There's really no other option.
So where I'm living, I'm just living essentially directly in the city centre in an area called Sol, which is right next to Gran Via, which is like the main street of Madrid. So I'm house sharing. I'm not living by myself. I'm sharing with 4 others. I pay just 440 euro, and then 50 euro on like electricity and gas as a fixed cost. So just 490 altogether. And to be honest, seeing Leo Varadkar's comments, it does feel like the grass is greener.
Like someone like myself who's moved to Amsterdam, I'm well aware it's not a cheap city. I didn't come here to save money on rent. I know that. I came here to get something that's safe, something that's cozy, comfy and nice, that young people have a good chance to get somewhere good. So, I mean, okay, the grass is not greener in terms of price, but it's gone so far beyond just price. It's supply and demand, regulation. It's the whole environment around renting is so unstable in Dublin, and he doesn't address that at all.
It's just so interesting that they're so vexed by it, that they are so willing to come on and to talk about it so openly, Richard. I mean, like, you really didn't have a lot of difficulty getting people to open up about this.
No.
One thing I just want to pick up on that I heard in that, the term shed sit.
It wasn't one I'd heard before.
I'd never heard it before.
But I'm not at all surprised that someone has coined a term for it, because, I mean, how many times have you seen ads going viral in the last 6 or 12 or 18 months of somebody basically renting out a Wendy house for over £1,000 a month? So I'm not at all surprised. But like, isn't that even more so, maybe not even the cost or the location that you get, the fact that property is so hard to get in Dublin, that there are people who will rent a shed to sleep in.
But even as we were listening there, you were like, the girl in Toronto, was it $1,400 a month for own place? There's a gym.
Yeah,
there's a couple of good amenities, and that you're like, not bad for a gym. Like, you would so not get that in Dublin. Absolutely not. You want daft, you'll see like places that are like supposedly studio apartments, and like the oven touches the bed, and you're like $1,800 a month standard. Like, it's outrageous.
It is, and I like you mentioned there that people were vexed about this. I think there's actually it gets a bit worse than that, because the people who sent in those clips, and thanks again everybody who did contribute there.
I love when people send
voice notes are brilliant. It really adds a lot to the program. But they're upset and they're angered because, first of all, they didn't want to leave. People would ideally spend their time in their home country or home city.
Sorry, but I would say the government would often say, oh, young people love to travel, so they want to go. And that's always, you'll always, there's going to be young people who want to go out and adventure and experience the world. And you're like, well, actually, those people are telling you they couldn't afford to stay here any longer.
And some people will, if even accepted that some people do just want to get out there and see the world. Completely understandable thing for some people to do. People who answered us said they didn't want to leave, and their situation meant that they couldn't afford to stay here, and that they could get somewhere much more comfortable, much more agreeable, and still have a good career and good standard of living, and better than they would in this country. But the point is that they are angered by what Leo Varadkar said, because they don't believe that they'll be able to come back in the near future because of what we're seeing. Obviously, the daft thing was out this week. Record level of rent increases. The people who make that report say the fact that we have such a shortage of rental properties means that the increases are going to continue.